In honor of Valentine's Day, I have a super special episode for you all. I'm going to be going through 6 fantasy romance books with some of my all-time favorite romances. I'm going to be ranking my top 10 book boyfriends, and I'm also going to be going through my Hear Me Out book boyfriends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kenzie Deeren, and I have a passion for fantasy books and rambling incessantly about them. For today's video, you guys are definitely in for a treat. It's a little bit sporadic, but listen, I love Valentine's Day, I love love, and I think that this will be a great time all around. So let's get right into it. The first part of this video is going to be me going through 6 of my all-time favorite romances from the fantasy books that I have read. I'm not going to be giving full summaries of these books, but if you guys do want that, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to make a video on it. First off, and this will come as a shock to absolutely no one, I'm going to be talking about the romance from the Kindred's Curse Saga by Penn Cole, aka Spark of the Everflame. I am so obsessed with the romance in this book. I think it is so beautiful, and in my opinion, the romance in this series is built on such a strong foundation, which, if we're being honest, that is not always the case in some romantasy books, if you guys know what I mean. And I really love this series specifically because I think that the fantasy and the romance is really well balanced. Truthfully, this series could be a complete series even if there was not a romantic plot, but I think the romance in it is what makes it so exceptional. This series is hands down the slowest slow burn that I have ever read in my life, but it is worth every moment of agony as the reader because the payoff is so fantastic. Here, our main characters build a foundation of actual trust and have a relationship instead of just having some sort of like insta-lust connection. And in my opinion, it really adds to the strength of their relationship. Like, I was rooting for these characters before they were even rooting for themselves. I also just want to give a huge shout out to the MMC of this book, Luther Corbois. The man that you are, the man that you fucking are, he is literally the definition of yearning and pining. I say that all the time, but he really truly is. This man is patient, this man is kind, this man is dedicated. He would literally do anything for the woman that he loves, and he truly is what every man should strive to be like. He really is the epitome of a man written by a woman because, you know. Next up, we have Fairydale by Veronica Lancet. Now listen, I know that this book can be a tad controversial among some of the bookish community, but listen, I know it's not for everybody, but it really is for me, and this has probably the most exceptional romance I've ever read in any sort of a fantasy book. This is a dark gothic, historical, paranormal fantasy romance with horror aspects, so there is so much going on in this book, and yes, I think it is longer than the Bible, but at its core, what this book truly is a love story, and one of the most breathtaking love stories at that. This romance is something that truly transcends time, space, thousands of years, and it is so, so beautiful. The MMC in this book truly shatters standards for any other book boyfriend in existence because I don't think I've ever read another man written the way that this one is. Like, this MMC is the epitome of, I will wait thousands of years for you if it means I have one moment, and I would wait 1,000 more if it meant I had one more second with you. This is a man that will wait multiple lifetimes. Like, when I was reading this, I was truly thinking of Work Song by Hosier, like the one that's basically the man saying, not even a grave will keep me from my woman. Like, I'll crawl out of it, I'll crawl home to her. Like, that was written about the MMC of this book. This story really is about fighting for your love, no matter what obstacles are in your way, no matter what happens. And it is just so beautiful. It really is the epitome of just knowing that true love really does conquer all. The War of Lost Hearts trilogy is another one of my all-time favorite romances, even though this is definitely a series that is more fantasy heavy leaning than romance leaning, but the romance in this is so stunning because it is so unique, I think, compared to a lot of the romances in the fantasy romance genre. I think a lot of the time we get sort of copy and paste relationships where, it's fake enemies to lovers and we have a stabby sassy FMC and like a brooding MMC who like wields shadows, but this romance is heartwarming, it is pure. It feels like a warm hug when you come home because of how precious it is. This really is like a grumpy sunshine, but in the most adorable way. This romance starts off as an apprenticeship, and honestly, it blossoms into like the sweetest, most cutie pie relationship that I think I've ever read. The couple's journey together in this story is so beautiful. I could like cry thinking about it because they both overcome so much and are just such good people at their core, and seeing two like really good people end up together and just fight all the circumstances in their way together, it makes you want to cry. I'm acting as if these are like two little kids or something. It's just such a beautiful romance. Their relationship is so sweet to me because obviously they end up as romantic partners, but I feel like they're best friends, like kindred souls. I truly felt like these two characters were soulmates, and their relationship was so beautiful to watch. Their journeys separately were so astounding, and then coming together at the end of the trilogy was just like, oh my God, so good. Next up on this list, we have the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Roeridge. And I really wanted to include this because this is a very long series. It's 5 books plus multiple novellas. And although there are really stunning romantic love stories and romantic relationships, this series really stood out to me because of the amount of found family and platonic love that is so important. It is equally as important as romantic love, in my opinion. Starting off though, I do absolutely adore the 2 main characters of this series and their journey together as a couple. In this story, our FMC has a very troubled past, a very traumatic past, and she often struggles to feel throughout this series like she is too far gone, like she's too far gone in the darkness, or that she's, too bad to be loved almost. And there's a huge theme throughout this book of the MMC stressing to her that it's okay to be in the darkness and you should learn to love your darkness and the darkest part of yourself. But while you're in the darkness, you can't let it take away the stars. So looking for the light in the darkness, and that you only find the stars when you're in your darkest point. And he always stresses to her that he'll sit with her in the darkness, no matter how dark, no matter how bleak, he'll always be there for her. And just always making sure that it doesn't overtake her light. The MMC really stresses here that there's nothing that the FMC could do, nothing that she has done that makes her unlovable, and that no matter what, he will always unconditionally be there for her. And it is a really beautiful theme, I think, and very, obviously it's a fantasy book, but I think that that type of love and that type of relationship is what we should all strive for. Obviously, we're not all like assassins and dealing with the traumas of this book, but I do think it is important to be with someone that loves the darkest parts of you, because it's not always a bad thing, and it's okay to find the light in your darkness. There is another romance that happens later in this series. I'm not gonna give spoilers because it does happen, I think, in like book 3 and 4, like the inklings of it. And the overall theme of that one really took me out. Every time I think about this relationship, I tear up, because the overarching theme of that one is that you're deserving of love even when you don't think you are. And it's so simple and sounds so silly, but I think it is so important. As I was saying, it ties back to the first couple. It is so important to find people and to be with someone that, will love you even when you don't think that you're worthy of love, because you are always worthy of love. One of the members of that couple in this story really struggles throughout the series with feeling worthy of love. They feel like they are a bad person, or that because of their actions, bad things have happened. And obviously, as the reader, we are able to see that this is such a good person that has had a very difficult life. And this is kind of how their traumas are showcasing in a relationship. And this character is able to find a partner that stresses the lesson I was talking about, that, that the person will always be worthy of love no matter what. And it really is such a beautiful lesson that we all should take away. Next up, Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek is one of the most heart-wrenching stories, heartbreaking stories I have ever read in my entire life. But I adore this book and this story. I originally picked this up in the Barnes & Noble saying oh, it's the YA book club of whatever month. This will be a fun, cute, little fairy tale that I'll read and it'll be happy-go-lucky. My God, was I incorrect. This is heart-wrenching. I sobbed at the end of this in a way I've never sobbed before. So do not let the YA part fool you. This would make a grown man cry. This love story is a bittersweet one of growth, self-sacrifice, and heartbreak. I don't want to give any spoilers in the story, but this really goes on a journey of enemy to friends to lovers, and it is just such a well-written story. In this book, our MMC is a 700-year-old demon warden of the woods, and he strikes a deal with the FMC where the FMC has to live with him in his manor and essentially work for him for a year. And basically what happens here is our demon warden starts off with an ice cold heart. It's barely beating. This guy has no emotions. He's mean. And slowly, he has a black heart. And oh my God. Slowly, as the year progresses, the ice around his black heart starts to melt. And we watch this 700-year-old demon warden change. A once selfish, cruel demon who only cared about himself and his power finds out that love can make you do things you never thought you would and make you give up things you had fought your whole 700 years to gain. Prepare to sob. I would recommend having an entire box of tissues next to you as you finish this book because, oh my God, but it is so good. And finally for this list, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker is a fantastic romance if you love like forbidden star-crossed lovers where he falls first and harder. This book really will pull at your heartstrings, especially because the end has some of the most crazy cliffhangers and heart-wrenching storylines that I have ever read. I didn't see it coming and it broke me. I adore the MMC Khan in this book because his patience and dedication with the FMC rave is really beautiful, and it honestly shows how much he loves her because, let's be honest, she does not make it easy. And don't get me wrong, I love the FMC in this book. I think she's fantastic. She really makes Khan like work for it, which I always love, but she has a very troubled past, and he's really, basically he just wants to sit there with her and will always wait for her. And it's a really beautiful relationship. I saw someone somewhere say that this love story is as beautiful as it is painful. And I truthfully agree because Jesus, I cannot wait for the next book in this series because this ending, this one also broke me a tad. But again, listen, in my opinion, if books elicit such strong emotion from you, if it makes you feel like your physical heart is breaking when you're reading it, it just proves what a beautiful story it is. And honestly, all of the books that I just mentioned are the epitome of that. All of these love stories, although they are fantasy, they have real world lessons in them and they show what real world love can and should be like. Okay, so now we're getting into the fun, silly, goofy part of this video. I'm going to be going through and ranking my top 10 book boyfriends. And you guys, this was actually much more difficult than I thought it was going to be because who knew that ranking men written by women could be this hard. Starting off with number 10, we have Dara from the Daevabad trilogy. The first book is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I love this character. Dara is actually probably one of my favorite like written characters that I have ever read, but he has such a traumatic and awful past. I don't know if I would like be able to deal with that. Like he literally has just lived 1400 years of absolute like misery. Absolute misery. All I really want is for him to know peace. And if we're being honest, I'm not that peaceful. So he's at number 10. I love him though. At number 9, we have Professor Bramwell from Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. He is everyone's favorite professor for an absolute reason. Listen, I ate up every single part of Professor Bramwell, everything he said in the book. But let's be clear. If someone in real life was as possessive and crazy as this man was, like if my fiance said the shit that this man says in the book, I'd be running for the hills. I'd be calling the police. Like, oh my God. Coming in at number 8, of course, I'm going to be including our little cinnamon roll, Max, from the War of Lost Hearts trilogy by Carissa Broadbent. Yes, this is the man that I was talking about earlier in the video. He, for sure, is going to be on every single reader's top 10 book boyfriend list because he's just perfect. He's a cutie pie. How could you not love him? Okay, so starting now, my list might seem a bit unhinged to those who don't know me, but if you follow me on TikTok or you know me in real life, you'll know that this won't come as a shock with my personality because I can be a little bit weird. So at number 7, we have Death himself from the Belladonna trilogy by Adeline Grace. I'm so obsessed with the idea of courting death. Like, I'm sorry, I am so unserious. People who don't know me probably think I'm a freak, but anyway, yes. Death himself is on my list for sure. Keeping on with my unalived trend, obviously Dagon from Vessel by Cornel Wynne is going to be on this list. Now I know you're gonna ask, Mackenzie, did you just put him on because he's a ghost? Yeah, that is why he's on my list. No, I'm just kidding. I also love his character, but the fact that he's not alive really helps. Moving into the number 5, so our coveted top 5, we have my favorite dragon shifter, Luca, from the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roerich. Does he have his flaws? Yes. Is he a little toxic? Yeah. But I think he's like the best of the worst in this series. Everyone in this series is awful. And I think he's like not as bad. So that counts for something, right? Coming in at number 4, we have Jax from the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. The meaner the man, the more that I like him. No, I'm just kidding. But I do honestly think that Jax is hilarious. Like, I giggled the entire time reading this series because he's kind of a dick. And I love how in each book he slowly becomes less of a monster. Okay, so now moving into the top 3. This was hard. I feel like these are all a little bit interchangeable, like give or take the day. But coming in 3rd place, we have the book boyfriend that ends all book boyfriends, the man who would literally wait a millennia for you, who would crawl through anything for you, and that is Eamon from Fairydale. Truthfully, he would probably be number 1 on this list, but at the end of this book, we find out some things about this man that are now forever seared in my kind of against my will, so that knocked him down a bit. Coming in 2nd place, we have the face of yearning and pining himself, Mr. Luther Corbois from the Kindred's Curse Saga by Penn Cole. Like, this man is truly what every man should aspire to be. I think I sang his praises enough during the first part of this video, but like, literally no notes. He has no flaws. Now, because it is me, and I could not possibly put a normal person in the number 1 spot, my number 1 book boyfriend is in fact Blackwell the Phantom from Phantasma. But Mackenzie, isn't he a phantom? Doesn't he literally live in a traveling haunted house based on the circles of hell? Yes. Yes, he is. And yes, he does. And that is in fact why he is taking the number 1 place. I'm partially kidding. I also think he's a sweetie pie. His love knows no bounds. I think his character is fantastic. But I am who I am. I'm obsessed with the idea of dating a phantom. What can I say? As this video is continuing, clearly my sanity is also going with it because, as I said, I'm kind of in a silly, goofy mood. So I'm also going to go through my Hear Me Out book boyfriends. Guys, I really hope that you can tell I'm kidding. This is all in jest. I don't need people in the comments being like, there's something seriously wrong with you, or like, almost every single one of these characters I'm about to talk about is a very serious villain. I'm aware that they're awful. I'm not condoning their behavior. I'm not condoning anything about them. This is a joke, and I hope that you can take it as such. Okay, so I'm going to be starting with the least crazy and working up to the most crazy in my opinion. So starting, we have Theon from the Legacy series. Now, the reason that he's a Hear Me Out is because this character is horrific. If you've read the books, you know he's awful. He I can't even say the things that he does in this book without actually wanting to cower that I'm even including him on this list, because he has some issues. I thought he was not redeemable until the end of this book, book 3, and now I'm not so sure. But listen, there could be hope for him yet. That is what I'm learning. Coming up next, we have the mysterious and infamous Leslie, the demon warden of the woods. Yes, this is the man thing that I was talking about in the first part of my video from Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. Listen, I actually was considering putting him in my original book boyfriend list, but then I was like, if I put a 700-year-old demon spirit who has giant antlers in that list, that's just so crazy. So I was like, I'll put him here instead. Hear me out with this one. I don't think it's that bad. Okay, so now this is where the list starts to get a little bit murky and people are probably gonna be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Again, it's for the he's. Okay, so we have Dracula himself from A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I know he's deplorable. The entire time I was reading this book, I was disgusted by him, but I totally get how he manipulated all of the members of his family to fall in love with him. He has riz, if we're being honest. I saw where the manipulation was happening, but also I was like, if I was in this position, I would totally not be able to withstand it. Sorry. Okay, so in 3rd place, we have Luke, who we are led to believe is actually the devil himself, from The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Now, if I were Addie, my dumbass probably would have been oh, I can fix him. Really, I can fix him. Oh my God, I'm so special. The Lord of Darkness, the devil himself wants me. Clearly, I'm crazy. But this man is the worst being in the world. And my fucked up self was literally kind of like hoping that him and Addie would end up at the end, like at the end of this book together. That is like awful. I'm happy that they didn't, because that's like a crazy thought. But I did think that. Okay, so now this is really where things are just like getting ridiculous. Hear me out, the nightmare. The nightmare from One Dark Window. I find him hilarious. Yeah, he's like kind of like a demon thing that like lives in your head and like sort of possesses you, but like whatever, he's funny. And finally, in first place, we have the infamous Tom Riddle himself, Mr. Voldemort. I can't even say that with a straight face because he's so fucking ugly. Like, I like haven't read the book, so this is also just coming from the movie, but like I do think his character is really interesting. And like before he like got all like gray and like didn't have a nose, I don't know, like, you know what? There really is no fixing this man. That's why he's in the most unhinged spot. I need to be tranquilized. I think that that's what we have learned. I need to be tranquilized. Also, honorable mention to Taryn from Fourth Wing. No, I'm not elaborating. I'm not elaborating on that one. Okay, guys, I really hope you know this part I was kidding. It was really for the ha-has. I would in no way ever want to be with someone like any of the people that I just listed, and I would never want someone close to me to be with them either, okay? Like, I just want to keep disclaiming that. Like, that was truly just a hee-hee moment. I've noticed sometimes people can't tell when I'm joking, so I just want to make that one clear. Anyway, if you guys are still here and watching as I literally descended into like mania, thank you so much for following along. This episode was a little crazy, a little manic, but listen, I had a good time recording it, so whatever. I hope you liked watching it. Anyway, I hope you guys have a fantastic Valentine's Day. And I know I sound like a broken record, but please make sure to like this video and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Thanks, guys.